Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. So today we're going to talk about calling people to Islam and facing disappointment from it. So we're going to talk about what the Quran says when we are developing this path to calling people to Islam and start to make da'wah to people, and the struggles of it and how we could combat it, and what Allah has said to those who are calling people to Islam. And a reminder for us all when we are embarking on this journey to call people to Islam as well. So first of all, like when we start to call people to Islam, we first of all we could hear and experience some sad moments, right? Like when we talk to them about some certain things and then they just don't follow it, or they understand it but they don't practice it, but they don't practice Islam, and they don't hear what we say and we don't feel heard. And we could experience ranges of emotions in this journey, right? And this could make us sad and disappointed, right? That people aren't listening and nobody's actually following. And yeah, it could hurt us in a way as well. And what Allah has replied to that the prophets, we should look back at the prophets. Like they were called mad because of them calling to Islam, because they didn't know what Islam was. They thought it was weird, and so they called the prophets mad. And look at how Allah comforted them. So Allah said to these prophets who were insulted, criticized, and just not heard, Allah said, "You are not to blame, and go on reminding people it is good for them." And this is so wholesome because Allah reminds us that we are not at fault if we already tried our best, right? If we already fully maximized our way to call people to Islam, and if they're just not hearing it, if we have put our best, then Allah is put to the rest, right? So all you have to do is just rely on Allah, and whatever outcome that is in result of that effort that we have put in is all decided by Allah. So we are not at fault. This is just Allah's plan happening. And so we're bound to face criticism and disappointment. And how I remind myself to stay compassionate to them and to just keep on reminding them is to see them as who we were back then. Because every saint was a sinner, and every sinner could be a saint, right? And which means for those who are religious, for those who are actually embarking on this path to call people to Islam, how I keep one of my biggest reminders that I find helpful to keep me steadfast is to remind myself that those who are not practicing Islam, although I've already told them about Islam and explained it to them and that it makes sense to them, but yet they don't practice Islam and they don't fulfill the practices in Islam. And I thought back to how we were before we were religious, right? Because to get here, we learn from our mistakes, right? Which means we get to try out things, and it consists of a journey from a sinner to a saint. And this has a process. We can't just be religious overnight, right? It needs to have a process. And there will be those sins that arise one or two. And when we sincerely struggle because of that sin, and when we are actually fighting against those sins, it is part of the journey towards Allah. And when we look at that in other people, we could just see them as not just disobeying Allah, right? But maybe we're seeing them that they're really struggling in this. And they were like us before. They were still learning and they're just trying out because maybe this is the first time they understood religion, and this is the first time they're actually trying out some more religious things and trying to get closer. But the road towards Allah and to attaining religiousness is not smooth, which means there will be bumps, there will be hard moments in that journey. And the road won't just be filled with obedience towards Allah, but there will be some disobedience. There will be some moments where we fall, right? And when we see that to other people, it may be shown publicly. And we could see them as this is their fall. So all we have to do is just pray for forgiveness for them to Allah and just keep on reminding them because it is good for them, right? Especially, it's really good to have a buddy to always remind yourself of what you needed to hear in terms of sin and just in terms to improve your religious state. it's really helpful to have those people who reminds us so that we could stay connected with Allah and to be steadfast in all of the things that we experienced in the journey towards Allah, whether it was during the hard moments and the easy moments that we face towards all in the journey. So we just have to, when we encounter on those who we see are falling, we see are committing sins, we just have to always remind them because maybe they are learning and they don't know. So we should be those who are reminding them on what they needed to know. Although when we tell the truth, it might be hurtful to them, but it's what they need so that their heart could open and crack open to Islam and fully open to Islam's light. So just keep on reminding them because we'll never know when Allah give power to our words. It could be just this 17th time where we ask them when will they pray, where Allah has given power to our words and they actually said yes to that answer when they finally agreed to our statement and consider about what we say. Because we will never know when Allah has put power in our words, when they really take what we say to heart and really contemplate about what we say and really want to learn more about Islam because we'll never know, right? So if we do face criticism, know that they aren't denying you. You are not the one that is being rejected, but it's the truth that is being denied. It's the Quran, it's Allah saying, it's Islam. But it's not you on an individual basis. It's not you on a personal basis. But they're denying Islam, Allah, and the Quran. And when you've tried your best, you're not at fault. So go on reminding people because it is good for them. So that's the end of my talk. So to sum it all up, so when we struggle on calling people to Islam because we already faced a lot of disappointments because we see people aren't practicing Islam as much. So we have to remind ourselves of the prophets back then who were really criticized and Allah comforted them, saying that they are not to blame and they have to go on reminding people because it is good for them. Same to us, because we're bound to face criticism and all of those things that hurt us. And when we see them falling in their journey towards Allah, when we see them transgressing, we just have to treat them like they were in our position of being to a sinner to a saint, where they're just still trying and learning things in Islam. So in their journey, our reminders are so significant because it could enhance their growth and keep them growing in their journey towards Allah. So we have to always keep reminding on people about Allah and about Islam because we'll never know when Allah gives power to those words and when people will actually take our words to heart. So when we call people to Islam and if they do deny it, know that they aren't denying you, but they are denying the truth. And that's the end of my talk. I hope it benefited. Salam and thank you.